fossil fuel companies telling us that we can carry on burning fossil fuel because they're magically going to stick something on a smokestack that's going to make it all right is obviously what they're going to say. They have a business model entirely invested in this vast amount of infrastructure that they desperately want to keep using for as long as possible, because otherwise they lose lots of money. So of course they're going to tell us that.
But maybe different to other COPs that have happened before, I think the corporate presence has been bigger here than maybe in the past, right?
The energy resources we use today are still likely to be a significant part of the energy mix in the future, at least within the next decade or two. But what we need to do is make sure those resources are utilised and developed in a more sustainable way that has a lower impact on the environment, and also decarbonise them so we reduce the risk of the impact of climate change. But in parallel to that, we are developing new solutions around renewables, integration of hydrogen technology and carbon capture to enable that reliance on fossil fuels as part of the energy mix to be reduced. So that's the point of the energy transition really, was we're moving from where we are today to a future state where we have a decarbonised fossil fuel portfolio, but that also has a much lower potential in terms of its percentage makeup of the energy mix.
Yeah, so that rationale that technology is going to save us all is just another part of this green capitalism narrative that we're seeing emerge a lot from big business, and unfortunately it's adopted by governments too. So everything from CCS to net zero to carbon markets, all of those are part of what we call false solutions. They're a desperate attempt from the fossil fuel industry to stay relevant, to keep getting public subsidies from governments.
Things like carbon capture and storage and hydrogen generation technology, they're available today. They are relatively mature, but we need to do more work to actually enable the deployment of those technologies. And that really comes back to consistent policies and access to funding. And then once we've got access to funding, we actually need to be able to better connect that funding to the projects that are in development and deployment.
When they say that technology is ready, that's just not true. I mean, we know that companies have been trying to set up CCS, carbon capture and storage projects, and they've managed to capture absolutely exactly zero carbon emissions. They're desperately trying to pretend that there's a solution that will save us all. It's the same with hydrogen.
Fossil fuels are a big part of the energy mix, but at the moment, without these investments, what's the real alternative? If we turn off the tap, then there's a huge risk to our economies, the development, general way of life, and there is no other alternative.
The fossil fuel industry is very clear. They've known about climate change for decades, and their strategy initially was to deny that climate change even existed. And now what they're doing is trying to sabotage and slow down climate action. And what we're demanding is what we call fossil fuel politics. We just want governments and decision makers at every level to stop listening to the fossil fuel industry because they just can't be trusted.